Hey guys, I want to talk about a bill that's coming up on the floor of Congress this coming week. You know, we've all heard a lot about H.R. 8. H.R. 8 is essentially outlawing private sales of guns. They call it the gun show loophole and all that garbage we've heard before, but essentially it's disallowing and making it against the law for you and I to sell guns to one another without having to go to an FFL and pay them to get a background check. It also, there's some other things in there, but again, essentially, it's outlawing private sales of guns to friends and family members and whatnot. But there's HR 1112 that I want to talk about today. This is a very overreaching and it's a sneaky bill. This bill has some wording built into it on purpose to try to play games with gun owners and people who are trying to purchase guns legally. Let me explain how the law works right now. If you go to a gun shop and you fill out a form 4473, which is a background check form, you fill all that out. You either get a proceed, which means you can purchase the gun and leave with it. You get a delay, which means that they're pumping the brakes a little bit. They see something the FBI does in your background that gives them pause. They're not sure if they want to let you walk with that gun. It's not saying it's going to be denied, but they're saying, hey, give me a little bit more time. I want to make sure this person is legit before I allow them to walk with a gun. And then there's a deny, a flat out, you can't purchase the gun. The way it works now is once you fill out that 4473, it basically kicks in a 30-day window where, let's say you get delayed, so to speak. Well, if all of a sudden after that delay, they tell you to proceed, that you're good to go, you've got 30 days to do that. If you wait till that 31st day, you're not going to be able to walk with that gun. You're going to have to start the process all over again because you allowed, as the customer, you allowed that 30-day window of opportunity that your background check, that your NICS background check was good for, you allowed that to expire. So again, you start the process all over again. Very, very seldom actually delays end up being denies. Usually you get granted your firearm. Again, it's just a way for the FBI to say, hey, wait a second, let's do a double take on this and make sure this guy's legit. Another thing that it does is there's a 3-day window that the FBI has to get back to that FFL dealer to let them know if you can either proceed or if you're denied. To incentivize the FBI to not sit on these background checks and just goof off and make sure that they're staffed up to be able to handle the workload, they have a 3-day window that they have to get back to that FFL. If they don't, that person that was being delayed is now allowed to walk with that firearm. So the FFL would then, after 3 days not hearing from the FBI, would contact that customer and say, hey, look, haven't heard from the FBI, so you're not denied based on the law. You can legally come in and walk with this gun and purchase it. Now, what it does, again, that's kind of an incentive for the FBI. It's kind of pushing them to make sure that they're not just arbitrarily going out there and goofing off and delaying people indefinitely just because they can. It's making them do their job. It's essentially holding them accountable from a time standpoint to get their jobs completed. Now, I will say this. Let's say the FBI did not get back with that FFL during that 3-day window and that person walks with the gun. There's a 90-day window that's also in play that the FBI can continue to do background checks. Even though that customer has walked with that gun, the FBI can still come back 30 days, 60 days later, 89 days later. After that 4473 was filled out, they can come back and say, whoa, wait a minute, that person shouldn't have a gun. And then the process goes into place to retrieve that gun, to track the person down, the customer down, and retrieve that gun. Just because that 3-day window is passed, if there's a person that was unsafe walking around out there with a gun, there are measures in place to be able to collect that gun. HR 1112. What it essentially does is it does away with that 3-day window that you had. That 3-day window where if the FBI did not contact the FFL and then all of a sudden the customer got to walk with the gun, that goes away. So we're pulling back on some of the things that made the FBI do their job before, and now we're giving them a much bigger, looser, relaxed window. And it gets worse than that. Essentially what you have, if you go out and fill out a background check, 4473, and you are delayed, now, instead of there being a 3-day window that needs to kick in place, there's a 10-day window. Now, the 10-day window is a business day window. Now, that's very, very important. We know business days are non-holidays and non-weekends. They are weekdays, again, outside of a holiday. Now, remember that 30-day window that we talked about that was in play as far as your NICS validity, allowing you to go ahead, like within that 30-day window, you have to go back if you get cleared within 30 days or else it expires. You have to restart the process all over again. That process uses calendar days. Now, I know it's starting to sound confusing, but that's very important. The current NICS system uses a 30-day calendar day window for validity of that NICS background check, whereas the new HR 1112 uses business days, not calendar days. Huge difference. Just weekends alone throw big wrenches into those plans as far as those two things not lining up. Now, those are all referenced in the coding, and especially the bill that they're trying to pass to rewrite the code. Those are all referenced. So this is not an accident. It's not an accident that we're somehow or another, you may be sitting back going, wait a minute, maybe they just haven't caught that yet, that one system is using calendar days and one system is using business days. No, they're very much aware of it. There's a reason for that. It creates kind of a perpetual system that can disallow you from purchasing firearms. Plus, there's no teeth in it. There's no fail-safe measure in there that says after a certain period of time that the owner, or excuse me, the customer can walk with that gun. So that goes away also. That window that said, hey, FBI, if you don't do your job, we're going to let these people walk with these guns. That goes away. So now the FBI can, in good conscience on their part, take as much time as they want, simply because there's no threat of a person walking with a gun just because they're being lazy or they're behind in their schedule as far as what they're doing. Now, I've got a calendar set up here so I can kind of show you guys, make a little bit more sense, because it gets kind of confusing. Okay, let's say this was the day. This is February 2019, our current month that we're in. Let's say February 1st, I filled out my 4473, which was my background check, and I got delayed. That's what my red magnet right there is. Currently, I have 30 days that this background check is good for. So the whole month of February, even going into March, again, we're talking about calendar days here, not just business days. I have until Saturday, March the 2nd, to actually exercise my background check. It's good for. Again, it's kind of a countdown. This is the day that expires, March 2nd. So I've got the whole month of February and 2 days into March. All right, now, with the new system, what will happen is when I get delayed here, we're dealing with simply business days. So on February 4th, I can actually, that's whenever they're going to kick in and start investigating whether or not I'm going to be eligible to have a firearm. That's the FBI. Right here on the 15th is their 10-day window. The soonest that I can do anything would be the 18th. Now, let's say that by the 15th, they haven't gotten back to the FFL dealer, the gun store. 10 days have passed from the 4th to the 8th, from the 4th to the 15th, those 10 business days have passed. I still haven't heard anything. The gun store still hasn't heard anything. So me as the customer, I can petition the government to say, hey, what about me? You forgot about me. Guess what? Another 10 days kicks in. Now I can't receive anything for 10 more days, which that moves into here. So March the 1st is whenever my 10-day petition expires, because HR 1112 says that I can't do anything. Once I petition, that countdown starts again, a 10-day window, a 10-day business day window kicks back in. And I can't do anything one way or the other until that 10 days has passed. Okay, it passes on Friday. Now, the calendar that I have set up over here is if your gun store is open 5 days a week, off on the weekends. That's what the green lines are. I'm simply open 5 days a week. So a lot of gun stores are closed on the weekends. So the soonest that I could do anything at this point, you got to see right here on March the 1st is whenever they basically could say, all right, Paul, you can go ahead and have the gun. The soonest I could do anything would actually be over here on March the 4th because of business days, right? That's when I'll be notified. Notice the big check right there. That's where the government says, Paul, you're clear, you're good to go. Well, guess what? Let me see over here. On Saturday, March the 2nd, is whenever my background check, my 4473 eligibility expire. So it was open the whole month of February and 2 days into Saturday, 2 days into March until Saturday, March the 2nd. But Monday, March the 4th, is whenever I'm actually cleared to pick up that firearm. 2 full days after the eligibility ran out. So on this day, I can't pick up a firearm because on this day, it expired. My eligibility to exercise that 4473 and that background check from the NICS system is gone. It doesn't exist anymore. So on this day, I don't have an eligible background check that's been performed. So what do I have to do? Start the process all over again. I can fill out another 4473 on this day and start this process all over again. This is with a 5-day window of gun shops being open. Again, weekends closed. You might be thinking, all right, some places stay open. Believe me, this is not okay because one of the main gun stores that I do business with are open 5 days a week. So this is not okay with me. This is going to allow the FBI, the NICS system, the government to put me in a perpetual delay. A perpetual delay that I'm constantly, because when this process starts right here again, it's just the same thing. There's no holidays in here. So this same cycle is going to happen over and over and over again. I will always be cleared. I will always be cleared in anywhere from 1 to 3 or 4 days after my 4473 30-day window has expired. My proceed window is over. It's over with. So that's a problem. Now, you might be thinking, what if my gun store stays open 7 days a week? Let me show you. It's not going to be as strong and as hard as those of us like this, but it's still going to affect you. So don't pull a bump stock on me and say, not my problem. I shop at a place that's open 7 days a week. Let me explain why. Using the same methodology that we used over here with the 5-day week of a gun store being open, let's move over here and look at this. All right. This is going to be November of 2019. Now, I didn't look at every single month that has a holiday in it. I didn't do July 4th, Easter, and all that stuff. I pretty much took this one because Black Friday, which is going to fall on the 29th of November this year, is the number one gun buying, if you want to call it holiday, but the number one buying gun day in the country every single year. So we're going to do it here, all right? This is Thanksgiving. That's why I have the green line through it. But again, you'll notice my weekends are wide open. We're selling guns 7 days a week on this calendar over here. A 4473 gets performed on the 29th of November of 2019, and I get a delay, okay? That's what my red button there is. Now remember, we're talking about business days here, all right? This is where my original FBI check, further investigation into my background will begin on Monday, December the 2nd. Remember, did my background check on the 29th. It's going to continue on the 9th and end on the 13th. That's where it ends. Let's assume I have not heard back from the FBI. The gun store has not heard back from them at that point. So I petition them, me being the customer. The soonest I can petition them is December the 16th. That's the earliest I can petition them. Again, they're not open on the weekends, even though my gun store is. So I petition them here. Starts all over again. 10-day window. Remember, it's a 10 business day window that I can't proceed and do anything. A minimum of 10 days that I can't do anything. Well, look what we got right here. We got Christmas Day in there, all right? So that's 5 days. 6, 7, 8, 9. Oops. 10. On the 30th of December is whenever my 10-day window pretty much says, all right, Paul, on the 30th, they will notify me that I can have a gun, okay? They'll notify me then, but I can't do anything till the 31st. You want to know when my background check, my 4473 expired? Let's take a look over here. We've got 7, 14, 21, 28, 29, 30. This is where my background check expired. That 30-day window that I had where I could proceed and go pick up my gun that I was trying to purchase, that started here. It expires after 30 calendar days, which means December 29th, it expires. They find out on the 30th that I can proceed, so I'm eligible to buy the gun on the 31st, 2 full days after my 30-day window has expired. No matter whether they give me the permission to say, you can proceed now, Paul, I can't legally proceed because I don't have an active NICS background check in effect at that point. This is a huge quagmire, if you will. This is no accident. This is a bill that they are fast tracking and trying to vote on this coming week in Congress. There's a reason they're trying to fast track it. There's no teeth to make sure the FBI does their job, but there's every single opportunity for the FBI and the government and all the gun grabbers in our government to put you in a perpetual loop that will never end. Over here, you got it a lot worse. Gun stores will actually, it's going to change the way gun stores do business if they're closed on weekends and only open 5 days a week. God forbid you throw a Holiday Inn over here because this is a big deal. But on this side over here, even being open 7 days a week, you're still going to run into problems because what you're going to be dealing with is even though you're open 7 days a week, the government is not. And they're only recognizing this 10-day window for your petition and for your original delay based on business days. And holidays are going to throw everything off, and it's going to throw a new weekend into your whole plan, push you into the next week, and it's going to allow the FBI and the government to continually delay you and cause you problems as an honest, law-abiding gun owner. Now, who is this not going to affect? Criminals. Once again, a gun law is not going to affect a criminal. Go figure. They're not going to need this because they're not filling out background checks to purchase their guns. Anyone that's thinking that this can't be an issue, oh, it can't be that bad, they're not going to do that, there will not be a perpetual loop. Well, mathematically, there is. Whether the FBI and the NICS system itself intends on throwing you curveballs and putting you in a perpetual loop of being delayed, whether they want that or not, if you get one delay, you go into that perpetual loop. Because again, as we proved here, there's no way mathematically for these dates to line out together. You're going to be 1 to 3 or 4 days off on that whole approval process. So again, whether there's bad intentions or not, mathematically it's going to happen. It's just going to happen over here as well. So there's no, look, we can say what we want that, oh, the government would never do that. Remember the IRS scandal where we thought that the government would never go after people just because of their political affiliation? Don't put it past the government to have the wrong leadership in there to suddenly start going after honest, law-abiding gun owners. We've seen it before in other areas. One last thing that I want to point out that is really bothersome to me. This whole bill is being put forth under the false guise and false pretense of the Charleston loophole is what they're calling it. If you'll remember the guy who shot up the Charleston church a few years back in 2015, I believe it was, they're saying that this caused the problems with him being able to get his gun because that 3-day window lapsed and he was able to walk with his gun. He was actually delayed. The guy was delayed. He went in to purchase his gun on April 11th of 2015. On April 11th, 2015, he got a delay in his NICS system because he had a drug arrest for drug use, not drug selling, but drug use. He was arrested for just possession. So they saw that. The NICS system saw that drug arrest in there, which was enough to stop him from buying a gun. If you simply look at the reading of the 4473 and the way the code of the law is written, it states unlawful use of any controlled substance. No matter what it was, if he was arrested for it, it was considered a controlled substance. So by law, not saying it's right, not saying it's wrong, but by law, they could have prevented this guy from owning a gun at all. But what happened was the FBI, during that 3-day window, they delayed him. They gave him the delay, but they never followed back through or gave him a deny. So after that 3-day window lapsed, he was able to walk with his gun. He actually walked with his gun 5 days after he filled out his 4473. So on April the 16th, he walked with his gun. Now you may be thinking, well, there it is. No, he didn't commit his crime. He didn't shoot this church up until June 16th or 17th. It was 2 months. So even if he got caught up in this loop for 2 times, 2 full generations, he still could have had his gun in time to perform this crime. And let's always go back. I always like to go back and say, whose fault is it? I like to look at root causes. I'm not going to blame a gun. Who dropped the ball? Who didn't do what they were supposed to do to prevent whatever was allowed to happen? The guy should have never been able to have the gun before. Whether you agree or not, if the guy's use of a controlled substance was reason enough to prevent him from using a gun, that was the law, and it wasn't followed. So there were teeth built already into the existing law that simply wasn't followed. So the new law doesn't change anything because the old law wasn't followed. If these guys aren't doing their jobs, it doesn't matter what the law says. If you keep letting them fall through the cracks, they're going to keep falling through the cracks. Guys, H.R. 1112 is going to the congressional floor this week. You got to call people. I always say, try not to send just emails. Emails are fine. That adds to the pile. But you got to call them because their emails, you're going to receive a blanket form letter in response saying, oh yeah, we respect the Second Amendment and everybody's right, blah, 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 blah. You're going to get the same letter that every single other constituent's going to get out there. You got to call these people. Let them hear your voice. Let them hear the passion in your voice and how aggravated you are. You know what? Explain this situation to them. See if they can explain this to you. Because nobody's talking about this. Not one person is talking about this. No politicians, Republicans or Democrats, are talking about this. Why? Do they not understand it? Or are they trying to hide it from you?